What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast. I get asked weekly or sometimes daily what it's like to live in Nashville, in Music City, and what it's like to make a living here. And things that you need to know before moving here. That's the bulk of it, is a lot of people. I have a lot of clients from around the country, and a lot of them have considered moving here, and they're always asking for tips. And so here it is. I'm going to break down everything that I think about living in Nashville, some good, some bad, some terrible. So thank you guys again for watching. If you're watching on YouTube or listening, because this is all going to get uploaded to every podcast network there is before long. So whether you're listening or watching, if you're on YouTube, I'd really, really, really appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon right next to the subscribe, so that way you get notified when I drop new podcasts and new videos. I'm going to get into a little bit more vlogging, but it's going to be like 2 videos a week max. I'm not going to be blowing you up. I'm not selling your address or anything like that. So if you could subscribe to YouTube, that'd be great. Look me up on Instagram. It's just at Colt Capperrune. And on Facebook, it's just at Colt Capperrune. And I don't even mess with Twitter. So check out my website, coltcapperrune.com. If you're a musician or an artist or a singer-songwriter, regardless of what it is that you do. I'm a producer. I'm a mix engineer. I'm a session guitarist. I do some mastering. I do some artist development. And now I do this, and I'm really having fun doing this. And I've been getting a ton of feedback from you guys saying how much these podcasts have helped, and that's really my entire goal. I try to think of, like, what do I wish someone would have told me when I was 20 or 22 years old, because I didn't have a mentor. And so all of these episodes are just driven towards, like, questions that I get constantly by clients and on social media. And what do I wish someone would have told me? And so I hope this helps. So you want to move to Nashville for music? Are you sure? So here is some of the good and the bad. And then this is going to pertain to songwriters. This is going to pertain to artists and musicians trying to get on tours, trying to do the session thing. This is going to pertain to producers and mix engineers like myself. Pretty much everyone in the music business should be able to take something away from this episode. So one of the greatest things, and it's usually when you come to town for the first time, it's usually one of the things that is the most shocking and overwhelming, and that is the quantity of musicians and of people that are in music. It is staggering how many people here in Nashville. I mean, it's Music City, but if you've never been here before, it's truly staggering. You cannot go anywhere. You can't stand in line at the 7-Eleven and not be standing next to someone who is a musician or a producer or who does something like that. The quantity is crazy. So healthcare, contrary to some popular belief, music is not the number one industry in Nashville. Healthcare is the number one industry. Nashville is a healthcare mecca of the whole country. But the music industry is the second largest industry in Nashville. And so, I think there's like 800,000 people in Nashville Metro, and then you've got all the surrounding cities, Franklin and Mount Juliet and Hendersonville, and there's so many, Spring Hill, there's so many suburbs. I guess you could call them suburbs now because we're turning into a real city. I don't know the exact number, but there's got to be 1.5 million, I would think. 1.5 million probably, which is not large compared to like Chicago or LA or New York. But it has a lot of the same qualities, both good and bad, that those places have. On top of the quantity of musicians, the quality of the musicians is head and shoulders above most places in the country. Now, I'm from Peoria, Illinois, originally. And before I moved here, the general conception was that, your waiter at the pizza joint is a better guitar player than you. And like when I moved here, that's what I was under the impression of. I moved here fully expecting to have my ass handed to me. Like, honestly, I expected to get demolished in the guitar front and as a producer and as a mix engineer. And I mean this as humbly as I possibly can. That didn't happen. And I think there's a couple reasons why that didn't happen. I think one, I was halfway competent. I wasn't a crappy guitar player. I wasn't a crappy producer. I wasn't a crappy mix engineer. I was competent. I could hold my own. But I wasn't some hotshot guitar player or producer or anything. I had some success when I moved here as a producer. I had my first number one already. I had maybe 20 or 30% of my clientele were already on the national stage when I moved here. But I wasn't crazy. So I moved here expecting I wasn't crazy. I probably was crazy, probably still am crazy. But I moved here expecting to have my ass handed to me, and that just didn't happen. Thank God. So while the quality of talent here is crazy good, it really is crazy good, it's not quite what most people elsewhere in the country think when it's like, good luck getting a gig because your barista's a better guitar player than you. It's not quite like that. I know some baristas that are fantastic guitar players, though. So there is that. But yeah, just being surrounded by music and musicians, it really is inspiring to me. Moving here and being surrounded by that, not necessarily quality alone, but the quantity and the quality of producers and musicians and artists, it really made me like step my game up, because I got here and I was like, oh man, like for real, like I'm a competent guitar player. I've played on thousands of records at this point. There are 10,000 guitar players here that are as good or better than me. And so, that really, when I moved here, that hit me pretty quickly. And same as being a producer, it was kind of crazy how I'm just going off on a tangent. So those of you that have never seen an episode before, I always do these lists, and I haven't gotten past the first one yet. So this might be a long one, but it was very quickly, being in the studio world as a producer and as a mix engineer, it was very, very quickly that I began to meet people and become actual personal friends with people that have won Grammys and that have won awards and have platinum records all over the place. And it's so, what I didn't realize when I moved here, when I had first moved here, is it's so common. The number of people that have had platinums and Grammys and that are very, very serious, that quantity of people that have done those big things is astronomical, which leads me to another point that I should bring up, even though I didn't write it down. Always assume in Nashville, it's a good rule for anyone. Actually, most of this episode could apply to wherever it is that you live. But especially in Nashville, I learned very quickly that it is important to assume that whoever it is that you're talking to has won a Grammy. If you just approach everyone like that and you give everyone the utmost respect and you are, kind and thoughtful to everyone that you meet, which is a kind of running theme with a lot of people here in the South, you won't ever get caught with your pants down when you happen to be kind of a dick to someone who you really shouldn't be a dick to. So, because there's so many of those people, I think it's just be a nice person all the time, because you never know who you're talking to. You absolutely will wind up in a random conversation with someone super successful and you don't know who they are. It's going to happen. So we're going to talk about good and bad things. The traffic here is stupid. The traffic here and the drivers. The traffic and the drivers. I don't bash people very often. I just got done saying to be a kind person. But the traffic and the drivers here is crazy. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I spent a ton of time in Chicago. I haven't been to New York City, but I've spent time in LA. The traffic here, while not, the quantity of traffic is not as bad as like LA or Chicago, really. The drivers are way worse. They are so much worse than they are in LA or in Chicago. In Chicago, everyone's fast and aggressive and screw you. And, you know, everyone drives like that. Here, you have those people, and you have people that drive 20 miles an hour under the speed limit. And then you have people that have no idea where they're going. Most people have no idea where they're going. And you mix all, and then people that just don't care who's around them or what they're doing. My wife literally yesterday got the worst door ding in her car I've ever seen. Big old chunk of paint taken off. Like, how does someone do that? And my wife was walking back to her car as this person was pulling out of the parking spot, and this person literally sped off to keep from getting caught. The traffic and the drivers are really bad. It's really frustrating. Enough about that, because I could talk about that forever. If you follow me on Facebook, you've seen me talk about it. The restaurants here are killer. Some of this is going to be just Nashville. Like, what is Nashville? The restaurants here are really good. I mean, there's lots of good down-home cooking. There's lots of great barbecue. Shout out to my buddy Chris Love, who thinks Memphis barbecue is better. It's not. The barbecue here in Nashville is ridiculous. You got Nashville hot chicken. I mean, you've got just tons and tons of great restaurants, which is awesome. If you're from any smaller of a town than Nashville, or even if you're from a town that is of a similar size as Nashville, the restaurants are crazy good. And lots of good places to eat that aren't crazy expensive, which is fantastic. I'm a total foodie. I'm a total fat kid. I just want to eat all the time. It's one of the things that I do for pleasure. My wife gets frustrated with me because when we go on vacation, on the rare instance that we ever go on vacation, the food, wherever it is that we're going on vacation, that's a big part of vacation to me, is experiencing the food and the culture and having nice meals. And she always makes fun of me because she'll go on, like, she'll get like those little travel packs of like cheese and crackers that are meant for your 3-year-old kid. And that girl could just do that just so that way she can go lay on a beach. And I'm like, no, man, I need the shrimp and I need the lobster and the beach. That's a vacation. Anyway, quality of restaurants, awesome. Tons of great coffee joints here. The lines at the restaurants, however, it gets a little frustrating because it's such a touristy hotspot. There's 35,000 tourists a day here in Nashville. And obviously that's an average. So some days there's 10,000 and some days there's 100,000. And so because of that, the lines there's not very many hidden gems of restaurants, and the lines are astronomical. Like, it's absolutely nothing to wait an hour and a half or 2 hours in line at Hattie B's to get you some Nashville hot chicken. It's one of my favorite restaurants in town. I'll never wait 2 hours. So for us, what it comes down to is, like, it's Saturday night and you want to go do something. You either got to have reservations or you don't go do anything super awesome, because you just, as a local, you just don't want to deal with that crazy amount of lines at restaurants, and it's a little frustrating. That's probably going to be the last negative thing I have to say. It's a little frustrating to be like, hey, it's Saturday night, honey. You wanna go out and have a nice dinner? Oh, I don't really have 4 hours to go eat dinner, so never mind. That's a little frustrating. But the restaurants are great. You want to go at like 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, you can go anywhere, and it's fantastic. Anyway, let me take a sip. Have I talked about my sponsor, Pepsi? I'm not really sponsored yet, but Pepsi, if you're out there, if anyone from Pepsi is watching, I literally drink you in every episode. I'll even use you as my thumbnail. Anyway, Sorry. I've been cooped up. My little baby girl's been super sick the last couple days, and I'm all ramped up because I'm actually doing something. One of the questions I get constantly, and I get it, is should you go play Broadway? For those of you that don't know, Lower Broadway here in Nashville is like where it's like the Strip in Las Vegas, only much smaller. But there's tons of clubs and tons of bands, and they play all day and all night, every single day, 7 days a week. I don't really know how many clubs are down on Broadway and like the side roads off of Broadway, but there's got to be 60, 70 clubs. I would think there's got to be somewhere between 50, 60, 70 clubs just in that one strip, and every single one of them has a band, and some of them are 2 and 3 stories, so they have 2 and 3 bands simultaneously all day long, 7 days a week. So the number of musicians that play Lower Broadway is thousands. Thousands of musicians play Lower Broadway. And I would probably bet that thousands of musicians make their living playing on Lower Broadway. So a lot of people, but it's all cover stuff. There's not really any original stuff happening down there. It's all cover stuff. So I get asked constantly, especially by new musicians and artists coming to town, should you play Broadway? And I think there's a general vibe around town that you get stuck playing Broadway, that once you fall into the Broadway thing, you can't ever get back out. But I never hear people actually talk about why you get stuck on Broadway. And here's my take on it, and then you can take this for whether or not you should play Broadway. It's not difficult. Once you've been playing Broadway for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe a year, it's not difficult to start getting the prime time slots and getting a good band. And then as long as you're a competent musician, it's not hard to do this. And then you start making $1,000 a week, $1,500 a week, $2,000 a week playing music. Now you're playing doubles and triples 5 or 6 days a week, or maybe 7 days a week. So you're playing, 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day. But the point is that you can make real money down on Broadway playing music, playing covers. The issue comes is people start making $2,000 a week playing music, and then they go get a pretty sweet apartment. They go buy a new truck, and they get a new credit card and go get themselves some nice clothes or whatever the situation is. That the problem is people make that money and then they let their lifestyle catch up to that level of income, and then they get stuck. If you're a guitar player and you're down on Broadway and you really want to be touring, you want to be playing with like larger acts on the road, well, you're not going to make $2,000 a week when you first start out on the road. So the most important thing is, if you're going to go play Broadway, is to not get trapped in that level of financial stability and income. Keep your overhead, which is a good rule of thumb for anyone getting going in music. Keep your overhead ultra, ultra, ultra low. And no matter how much money you're bringing in that week, don't let your lifestyle catch up to your income. And that way, when the opportunity comes for you to go on the road for $150 a day and you're only playing 4 shows a week, you can actually do that and make that work, because 99.9% of musicians have to start at that place, at that like $150 a show times 4 shows a week on the road, out traveling away from Nashville. Most people have to start there in order to work their way up past that. And so you let your lifestyle catch up to that $2,000 a week you're making on Broadway, and next thing you know, you can't quit that to go do the $150 4-day-a-week touring on the road gig, because you've got a 2019 Silverado, and so it doesn't work now. So I think playing Broadway is awesome for meeting people. I think it's awesome for networking with other musicians and other artists. I think it's awesome for building your stage presence, making you more comfortable, giving you tons and tons. I mean, if you're playing 8 hours a day on stage, you're going to become a seasoned musician or a seasoned artist much, much, much faster. I think it's great for that. I think it's great to allow you to be able to make your living at music. And that's awesome. Another thing that people get caught up in, though, is it's exhausting and you're drinking. You know, people are buying you shots and stuff. And so if you move here as a songwriter and you're like, I'm going to go play Broadway and I'm just going to, you know, pay my bills with music. Awesome. But you get drunk every single night and then you sleep in every single morning. And next thing you know, you're not doing that co-write or 2 co-writes every single day that you actually moved here for. You're just playing Broadway because you're tired and it's exhausting and you're hungover. And so there's a bunch of different things that can make people trapped and distract people from their ultimate goal when they're doing Broadway. So I think it's a great idea to play Broadway as long as you have crystal clear focus on what it is that you came here for, what you're trying to do. And just use this as a way to get more practice and more time under your belt, more stage time under your belt, meet a bunch of people, network with a bunch of people, but remain focused on what it is that you came here for. That was kind of a long tangent, but I have people ask me about this Broadway thing constantly. So that kind of leads me into the next thing is like, Nashville is a very personal, relationship-driven town. People work with people they know here, and I've said this in my session player video too. I've probably said this in every video. People work with people in every episode. I need to stop calling these videos because some of y'all are going to be listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify when this is all over. People work with people they know, specifically in Nashville. And people work with people they know over more talented options they don't know a lot of times. It goes a little something like this. Let me switch gears because I've been talking about artists, but it works exactly the same way for musicians and for artists. You're a producer in town, and you could spin this so many different ways. I'm having brain fog right now. You're a producer, and you want artists to hire you. Artists will hire you more often because they know you than because you're the most talented option. Because there's got to be. I mean, studios just like this. I mean, this room is at home for me, and my new room that I'm building right now is at home as well. But this is I make serious music here. Nashville is a very home studio driven world. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The point is that there has got to be 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 really serious home studios like this. And what we all do, I'm getting sidetracked even more. And what we all do is we have badass rooms at home that we work out of, and we do most of our work here. And then when it's necessary to have a bigger room, then we go to Blackbird or Sound Emporium or wherever it is that we go. And so anyway, you're a producer, you need artists to hire you. There's so many producers in this town. There's so many. You're not going to be the most talented one. Like, I'm not the most talented dude in Nashville. There's no way. I get hired a lot because I know a lot of people. I've had coffee 2 or 3 times a week with someone I've never met since I moved to Nashville. So we're talking 1,000, 1,500 people that I've sat and had a face-to-face personal conversation with. And what happens then is I'm giving away some of my secrets. And then what happens is those artists, and then I use social media to stay in front of their face all the time. I'm always working. I'm always doing this thing. And then what happens is those artists, they need a producer. Sometimes it's been 5-6 years since we've met, but they need a producer. And I'm the first person they think of. I might not be the most talented option. I might be the right option. I might be the option in their budget. There's so many variables go into this. But the point is that you need to build relationships. Nashville works on relationships, and you will get opportunities because you know people. It's not like this cliche like, oh, it's who you know or, someone. But no, like, I know people that are session players, and I hire the people that I know, and that's just how it works. And so Nashville's an extremely relationship-driven town. Build as many relationships as you can. It's super important. The other thing is, like, not only is it super relationship driven, but there's a ton of options. So, like, chances are where you're from, whether you were in a band, you're a singer, you're a musician, you're a producer. In Peoria, Illinois, where I'm from, I was the only serious recording studio in Peoria. There's another pretty serious place about an hour away. And then outside of that, you had to go like 2 hours away. My place was the biggest recording studio in all of Central Illinois. Between Chicago and St. Louis, my place was the biggest. And so I would get a lot of work by default, honestly, back when I was in Illinois, because there just weren't a lot of options. I had the biggest place, so if you wanted to track a big band, a choir, a whatever, I was the logical choice. I was the first thing that pulled up when you Googled it. Like, here is the polar opposite of that. You know, you as a band, there were not a ton of guitar players when I was back home, and I was doing, I played in cover bands, and I did the original thing. I did all of that stuff. It was not that difficult for me to get the more desirable positions in the bands that I wanted to be in, because there just weren't a whole ton of great guitar players that were reliable and honest and had good stage presence and didn't look like they were completely homeless. And so it wasn't that hard. Here is not that case. Like I just said, there's 3, 4, 5,000 studios just like this here in Nashville. And same way, you know, as a guitar player, like you have to be reliable, but like there's a ton of musicians. So you're not going to get the work by default. Chances are, wherever it is that you're from, unless you're from LA or New York or Austin, you were getting work by default because there weren't that many options. That won't be the case here. You have to build relationships, and you have to sink into the culture here. But I'm going to get back to that. There's a couple little side notes that I'm going to work my way up to. But another thing that I get asked constantly, and I was under this impression when I first moved here, I was so adamant about having a Nashville address. And this address is in Nashville. If you book a session with me and I send you my address, it's a Nashville address. I thought that was super important when I first moved here. I thought it was important that for the companies that I worked with, that the package be sent to Nashville, to a Nashville address. What I have come to realize over my years living here is that no one cares. Literally no one cares, and most people don't actually live in Nashville. They live in Franklin or Brentwood or Spring Hill or Hendersonville, or, you know, there's Murfreesboro even, which is starting to get out there, but there's so many other towns around here that are more affordable and have better schooling and cheaper taxes and all on and on and on. It's absolutely fine. I'm saying this to you for myself because people ask me what side of town they should live on or how close to downtown they need to live at. But me, myself, I was under the impression that I had to live in Nashville. That's what I thought when I moved here, and that's just not the case. It doesn't matter. My new place that I'm building right now is only like 20 minutes from downtown, but it doesn't have a Nashville address, and I'm super stoked about it. And my current place that does have a Nashville address, every client that I've had, I've had them GPS where they are to my current room and where they are to my new room. And my new room is the same distance or shorter to every single client that I currently have than this room, even though this room has a Nashville address and the new room does not. So anyway, I thought that would be something good to discuss. Okay. The most important thing, the literal most important thing that you need to know before moving to Nashville, or if you've just moved here, or if you've been living here and it's not quite working for you, have a plan and a strategy. I literally have that. Pardon my chicken scratch. I literally have that in all caps. My handwriting's terrible. Have a plan and a strategy. I see hundreds. There has been 100 people a day moving to Nashville for years now. And I think that just dropped below 100 people a day a few months ago. But so 100 people a day for years move here. And I try to keep tabs on like new artists coming to town and they're who hire me, and I want to build relationships with them and I want to help them and all of the reasons why I'm doing this. I see so many people. It makes me sad. It's part of the reason why I'm doing this episode. I see so many people that move here and they last a year or 2 years, and they just are kind of under the impression that they've moved to Nashville. They're in Music City. They are musicians themselves. It's gonna work. It doesn't work like that. You have to be purposeful. You have to be deliberate about the things that you do. You have to have a plan and a strategy, and you have to move here, and you don't have to move here. If you move here, if you move here, you have to make progress towards what it is that you're trying to do every single day, because it's a cool city, and because you might be playing Broadway, or you might just go become a receptionist at a chiropractic office or whatever. It does, you get a job so you can pay your bills when you first move here. It's a cool city, and it's very, very easy for people to just get up and do their 9 to 5 and think that just because they're in Music City, they're going to meet the right person that's going to do the right thing for them. And that is not how this works whatsoever. You have to be purposeful and deliberate about creating relationships and making progress towards what it is that you want to do. And here's the reason why. Music is the number 2 industry in this town. And there's something like 1.5 million people here between the Nashville Metro and all the suburbs. And so how many people are here that do music? Now, we're talking number 2 industry. That doesn't even include the people that are hobbyists or that are not yet making a living at it. So, I mean, we're talking 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. I don't really know. Hundreds of thousands of people that do music here. And while I'm adamant about not viewing people as competition, other songwriters are not your competition. Other producers are not my competition. However, if you don't go after what it is that you want, if I don't go after labels and artists and managers to do what it is that I do, someone else will, because there's so many people here doing the same thing. And so just being here does literally nothing for you. Now, you might meet some cool people, and like I said earlier, like assume everyone that you meet has won a Grammy, because chances are that they have. And it was inspiring. It's very inspiring to be here. It made me a better producer and a better guitarist and a better all-around person in the music industry by being here and being surrounded by all this. But you won't get anywhere just by being here. Living here will not help you have a music career in terms of what you can accomplish. So, that said, people do take you more seriously when you're a full-time music person, whatever it is that you're doing in Nashville. I said earlier that about 30% of my clientele was on the national level before I moved here. And I used those national clients that I was having to help cushion my move into town. It was a rough first year because I literally cut my income by like 30%. And we're always learning, we're always growing, we're always becoming better, we're always changing as people, as producers, as musicians, whatever it is that you do. I mean, I hope that we're always evolving. That's the point. But in the couple months prior to me moving here to Nashville, and in the couple months after me moving here to Nashville, there was like this thing that happened throughout those few months where people took me way, way more seriously just because I was a full-time producer, mixer, whatever, in Nashville. And when that first happened, those first couple months, it annoyed me to no end. Because I was the same dude. 2 months before I moved here to 2 months after I moved to Nashville, I'm the same dude. Nothing changed. I didn't really learn that much. I didn't really grow that much. I'm like the same dude. But people automatically took me more seriously, especially people that didn't live in Nashville. And so I see that a lot from the artist perspective, from the producer perspective, and the mix engineer perspective for people that live elsewhere in the country or elsewhere in the world. My clients are all over the place. I'm doing a project for a client in Singapore right now. And as an artist, let me get back to that. As an artist, I see it constantly where you are going to be taken more seriously in other markets around the country because you're a Nashville artist. And all I mean by that is that you live in Nashville, you're from Nashville. I'm not really into this whole Nashville recording artist thing that people tout. But anyway, you will get taken more seriously being from here. People automatically assume that if you can live here and people elsewhere in the country automatically assume that if you can live here and you can make a living at music from here, then you must be serious. You must be awesome. And that partly plays into the fact that Nashville has become this like it city. You know, we're like second or third fastest growing city in the country. It's like us and Austin and Miami, I think. So you can use that to your advantage. 100% you can use that to your advantage. Yeah, I mean, if people take you more seriously, you can get out and get more gigs. But anyway, the other thing, I know I'm missing something, but this video's gone on long enough. One of the things, first of all, before I wrap this up, if you live here, drop me a comment. Wherever it is that you're watching, drop me a comment and let me know what your favorite thing about Nashville is and your least favorite thing about Nashville is. And if you don't live here, drop me a comment with what you think helped you the most in this video, in this podcast, or what question you still have about what it's like to live here or what to do or whatever. The other thing, and let's just run this all again. If you're watching on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. If this helped you or helped your friend, if you think this will help anyone, I would love it if you would share it. It would mean the absolute world to me. You guys liking, giving me a thumbs up, and commenting and sharing is literally what lets me keep doing this. And so thank you guys for your interaction. The one thing that I see happen a lot, though, and this is a little unfortunate. One of the things that I see happen a lot is people move here from wherever else, and they've moved here either for better opportunity or because they fell in love with the city. But then they move here and they try to change it socially, politically, musically, like whatever, fill in the blank. For instance, there was a place in Midtown called Soulshine Pizza. Killer venue, killer upstairs / outdoor venue. It was awesome. They built a big old high rise right behind it, full of condos, and because this place had music every single day, the people that moved into those condos got tired of hearing music, got a court order, got them shut down. The place no longer exists. All the music people in Nashville are super annoyed with this. These people who moved into these condos either got an opportunity in this town and they moved here, or they fell in love with this town and they moved here, and then instantly went to work trying to change things about this town. I'm getting a little worked up. Don't do that. If you move here, now I'm not saying that there's not room for growth in anything political, socially, musically, whatever. But if you move here, be conscious of the fact that you moved here for a reason. Try to allow the culture of the city, the culture of the music, the music industry, whatever, try to allow yourself to become acclimated to it instead of moving here from wherever you're from and trying to change. It's a natural thing that we all do, but I want people to be conscious of this. If you move here because you have opportunity or because you love the city or both, do your best to allow yourself to acclimate to the culture and the industry. Don't try to change it to whatever it was wherever you're from. Because if it was so great wherever it is that you're from, then you would have stayed there. You came here for a reason. Leave it alone. It just drives me nuts. We're finally growing so fast that like I'm starting to see changes happen that really suck, if I'm being completely honest. There's some things happening. I mean, everything from like restaurants and businesses to the music industry to, I just see a lot of people move here and then try to change it to whatever it was where they're from. And I think that's really unfortunate. It just sucks. So I'm going to say it one more time. If you've moved here, you moved here because there's either opportunity or because you love Nashville. Just leave it alone. Figure out what you can impart in a positive way, but don't move here and try to change the industry, try to change, it's just, anyway, I could probably talk about that for a while. That was the last thing I had, but I don't feel like we can end on a bad note like that. So let me flip this around. If any of you have seen my previous episodes, there's tons of great information in all the episodes, but you have heard me talk about how my studio in Illinois, how I had a huge studio and how I lost that studio because the building that it was in got redeveloped into condos. And I just didn't feel like it was a smart idea for me to build again from the ground up in Peoria, Illinois, where like things were fine. I already had a number one, but like it was kind of like break even. So we decided to move, and it was really like LA or Austin or New York. Or like maybe Seattle. Like we considered a few different places, but they had to be a music center. And we chose Nashville, and I will say that it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not just in terms of building my career, because that is true as well. My career has been on an exponentially, whichever way you're watching this, my career has been on an exponential curve for a while now, and I'm super grateful for that. But being here and being surrounded by the level of talent and the quality, and knowing that like I have personal friends that are working on number one records and winning Grammys constantly. And again, they're not my competition. No one is my competition, but it is incredibly inspiring to be surrounded by that. It's almost like it makes it much more obvious how possible it is, and not just possible. I shouldn't say it's not difficult. It's difficult to get there, but it's just so much more tangible, I guess is the word I'm looking for. The fact that my friends are doing so well, and people that I know here in town are working on such huge records and winning awards. It's so much more tangible for myself as a producer and as a mixer. And I think that is the most positive thing I can say about living in Nashville, is that if you really fall into the culture and you fall into the music industry and you allow yourself to be consumed by what this city has to offer, it is the most inspiring place. And if you wake up every single day and you make progress on whatever it is that you're trying to do, just one foot in front of the other, even if it's one tiny little thing, maybe it's just one photo on Instagram that you've posted, maybe it's just the title for a new song that you want to write, but you make progress. You wake up every single day and you make progress, and you network and be involved in the music industry. You can't help but be inspired, and you can't help but raising the bar for yourself for whatever it is that you do, producer, mixer, a songwriter, a guitar player, drummer, whatever. You're just surrounded by quality. You're surrounded by inspiration. And to me, that is that's the most important thing of this whole video, is that I wouldn't be where I am if it was not for moving here. And I'm probably going to get some hate from people that live here because it's getting full. The traffic's ridiculous. The lines at the restaurants are ridiculous. There's a lot of people that would be fine with people not moving here anymore. But it's a cool city. It really is a cool city, but more importantly, it's inspiring to be surrounded by all that stuff. So, if any of you are in town, feel free to drop me a comment. If I have time, I'd love to have coffee with you. I'd love to help point you in the right direction, if nothing else. I don't expect anything from it. I will say that the more content I drop and the more my socials grow, it's becoming harder and harder for me to keep up with everyone. It's becoming harder and harder for me to get back to all my messages. And it's becoming harder and harder for me to have coffee with everyone that I talk to. But it's still my goal. I still want to have coffee with everyone. I want a face-to-face relationship with everyone that I possibly can, even if you never hire me for anything. I feel like it's my duty to just put good juju out there. And again, like I said at the beginning of this, it's how many things do I wish that I know now for a fact, how many things do I wish someone would have told me, when I was 20, when I was 22. And so I hope this helps someone. Feel free to share it with your friends. Give me a thumbs up and drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. And if you could subscribe, I'd appreciate it. I guess that's it. Thanks for watching or listening or whatever it is that you're doing while consuming this. Thank you. We'll see you guys.